I just hope my kids aren't dickheads.
Welcome to Business Blaze. I am your boy with the blaze.
No!
Stop this. It's over. I won. You son of a bitch. Fuck you. I will cut your face off.
Oh my god, there are cuts absolutely everywhere. This is not right. Well, this one's broken. Sorry, ETA. Get out of here. It's not your time. Allegedly. This is the latest merch item, my favorite merch item so far. As you can see, it says allegedly all the way across. Someone on Twitter was like, I posted this, I was like, I'm extremely pleased with this new merch that is coming out that says allegedly. People are like, what? So you're saying like someone did something legendary allegedly? I don't get it. And I'm like, we don't watch Business Blaze, do you? But I'm gonna put a blazer on because I feel naked without it. And this is Business Blaze after all. What are we learning about today? Who am I kidding? No one comes here to learn. U-Haul has got up to... I had a coffee. U-Haul has got up to some crazy ass shit. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering what goes on here, well, there's an ongoing meme with my space heater called Wilson/Charles/ETA. There's a lot of memes. Essentially, while I do some cable management, Danny, our beloved writer, writes me a script. I read it. I am not beloved. I add some jokes that are not funny, and then Sam adds some memes. And I'd highly recommend that you blaze. I always love to hear a positive and uplifting story about a long-running family business. Yeah, Danny, but the Business Blaze audience doesn't, which is why I mostly am like asking you to write scripts that are just shitting on companies' mistakes, because those are the ones that are successful.
There's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. You know, I'd like my life back.
I was like, yeah, Business Blaze, originally. Business Blaze was gonna be a channel actually about business, and then it became not. Sadly, this is nothing even remotely like it, thank God. No one cares about success. There's usually something quite encouraging and heartwarming about a story involving a young entrepreneur who starts out with next to nothing and ends up forging a mighty business empire, which is later proudly passed on to his beloved heirs who drive the business forward to the next generation and beyond. I'm already excited to pass Business Blaze off to my daughter. She's gonna love it. It'd be like, can you imagine her at school, what does your dad do for a living? Oh God. My dad's a dentist. My dad's a doctor. My dad's an accountant. My dad's a blazer. He's literally, he just makes bad jokes on the internet. But I suppose it's easy for things to get a bit complicated and messy, particularly when there's more than one heir involved. For example, it's always going to feel a bit awkward if the younger sibling gets made president of the company, while the older sibling has to make do with being appointed head of fourth floor sanitation. Although Danny's written sanitization, which I suppose is particularly appropriate with the COVID situation right now. When the 83-year-old Leonard Schoen drove his car straight into a telegraph pole in Las Vegas in 1999, and his life began to flash before his eyes, he must have spent at least a couple of seconds reflecting on how his own family business hadn't quite planned out the way he'd hoped. But considering that Leonard had been married 5 times, twice to the same woman, and no less than 12 children scattered across 3 of those marriages, the family roots of this particular business were always destined to become a little tangled in the decades to follow. In fact, the story of U-Haul involves relentless bickering and squabbling, dirty tricks, unceremonious bootings, boardroom punch-ups, and even, allegedly, a murder. And by the way, I know it's Leonard, not Leonard, but thanks for smashing that dislike button already if you did. You hero. To be honest, I'd never really heard much about U-Haul. Yeah, me neither, Danny. Danny's also British, I'm British. We don't have U-Haul, but I understand it's like a truck that you fill up with your when you're moving house, or maybe live in if you're poor. But that's maybe not too surprising, as I don't think that the moving equipment and storage rental company is largely known outside of the United States. True. The company was founded way back in 1945 by Leonard Schoen. Oh, great. Danny now says pronounced Schoen. I'm like, thanks, Danny. You could have mentioned it the first 3 times. And his wife, Anna Marie. Anna Mary? I don't know. The son of an Oregon farmer, a young Leonard had served in the Navy. Before trying his hand at a number of failed business ventures, including a barber's shop and a motel. The idea for a one-way trailer service came about when Leonard and Anna Mary were trying to move house from Ridgefield, Washington to Portland, Oregon, but found it impossible to hire a one-way trailer in which they could pack all their stuff. There were plenty of local trailers for hire, but nobody seemed to provide a trailer that you could rent from your original location and drop off somewhere else near your destination. So Leonard and Anna Mary used their life savings of $5,000 and got to building their own trailers and developing franchise relationships with the owners of gas stations across the United States, where these new trailers could be picked up and dropped off. It wasn't an immediate success, and during the financial struggle of the early years, Leonard, Anna Mary, and their first young children moved in with Anna Mary's folks to save on costs. They were often spotted dining out in fancy restaurants, but only ordering one plate of food to share between them with 2 forks. Is that true? I don't really get it if it is. I don't know if Danny's making a joke there. Am I missing a joke? I often am, and people are like, you're so dumb. Yeah, you didn't make the bum on a pun. But by the 1950s, business was booming. U-Haul had now established a huge network of dealerships with service stations across America. There were 10,000 of U-Haul's distinctive bright orange trailers on the road, and the company had started to expand into the rental of trucks. One night in 1957, Leonard remarked to his wife that he couldn't quite believe just how things were going. That very same night, Anna Marie suddenly died of a heart attack, aged just 34. Oh, that's really sad. That's pretty terrible. Later revealed that he had often worried if there was a price to pay for his success. Dude, this is totally a thing. He said, when Anna Mary died, I thought maybe we had paid the price, but we hadn't. Oh god, Danny, I thought this was going to be fun and we were going to on U-Haul. Instead, it's just devastatingly sad. Leonard had now been left alone with 6 children to raise, but he didn't stay single for very long. Just a year later, he married his second wife, Suzanne Gilbar, with whom he would have a further 5 children. God damn. At one point, the happy household crammed with 11 siblings all lived together under one roof in Phoenix, Arizona, although some of the older ones had been packed off to boarding school. And it wasn't an entirely happy household, as there were regular bouts of sibling rivalry, and some of the kids from Leonard's first marriage were resentful of their new stepmother and their new situation. Yeah, I mean, you got 11 kids. There's gonna be some fights going on. It's not going to be super comfortable all the time. I have 3 sisters. That's only 4 of us. I can't imagine if there were 11. But although things were a bit rocky at home, things at U-Haul were going from strength to strength. Throughout the 1960s, U-Haul completely dominated the self-moving market and were driven to new heights with the help of cheap gasoline. By the end of the decade, the family business empire had been reorganized under the parent banner of the Americo Company. By 1970s, things weren't so kind to the corporate company corporation as the 1973 oil crisis, famously, and the 1979 energy crisis took its toll on the fortunes of U-Haul. Gas got really expensive, I believe. But the good news was that some of Leonard's kids were now old enough to join the company and help dear old dad steer it in a more profitable direction. Eldest son, Sam, had been busy carving out his own career in medicine, but was persuaded by his dad to get on board with U-Haul. It's clear that Sam was being groomed to follow in his father's footsteps and eventually take over the running of U-Haul. This reminds me of that television program Succession, where it's like this, the old dad, the patriarch of the family who's built this media empire. I think it's supposed to be like Fox, because they're always poking fun at it. It's like, do we make the news? It's like, not really, guys. Oh, and chill out, righties. I know CNN is also a bit of a joke. Yeah, but in that show, they're like trying to groom the guys to like take over the company, and I'm like, is it nepotism or cronyism? It's nepotism when it's your family, right? And cronyism when it's your friends. Like, hiring your family is a terrible idea because it's like the only thing that they have in common with you, or the only, like, yeah, you're related to me, so you're probably good at this job as well. No. Just no. Like, and in that show, there are a million MBAs who would do a better job than his son does. The one son who's remotely competent, but still he gets to run the company. And the other son who's completely incompetent is like a COO. It's like, what are you doing? You might have built an amazing business, but you're a terrible businessman, keeping it in the family. Just let them own it, and then do all while you hire people who are competent to run it. Jesus. Several other children were also given key executive positions. Again, that's a bad idea. But it soon became apparent that not everyone saw eye to eye about the future of the company. What a surprise. In fact, it was around this time that the family split into 2 different factions, which I'm going to call the Imperials and the Renegades. I have a feeling this is a Star Wars thing, and it's definitely a reference that I'm not getting, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not a Star Wars thing, but it feels like I know this from Star Wars, because there's the Imperial troops or something, the guys in the white thing with the scary eyes, And then there's like, I don't know, I've never heard of renegades, but some family members switched allegiances from time to time over the decades, but the Imperial faction was generally led by Leonard himself and his eldest son, Sam. Sam was always fiercely loyal to his father. Wow, it really sounds like the Succession TV show was based on U-Haul. And fully backed the company's founder's vision of expanding the Americo empire during these difficult times and looking into developing new revenue streams, such as storage rental. The renegade faction was led by younger brothers Joe and Mark. The pair of brothers had always been very close, and they became increasingly annoyed by older brother Sam's unswerving loyalty to their father. Stupid loyalty to the man who made our family rich. They felt Americo was losing its focus by expanding too quickly into other irrelevant lines, and believed strongly that the company should go back to the basics of trailer and truck rental. To be fair, they had a point. Some of the new business lines were getting a bit weird. The storage rental thing turned out to be a profitable long-term idea, but Americo had also randomly turned its hand to renting jet skis and party supplies and even VHS cassettes for a while, long before the days of Blockbuster. This all sounds kind of good, like VHS rental before Blockbuster. That was a good business for a while, until it wasn't. And Leonard's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic. One day he invited his key employees into his top-floor office to show them a visual demonstration of the value of money. The point he was trying to make was that if an executive spends money on something that only makes himself feel good, he might as well be throwing it out onto the street. I mean, that's a bit of a weird point, but okay. And to hammer his point, were they like abusing their corporate credit cards or something? To hammer his point home, he took out $1,000 in cash and began tossing it out of the window into the hands of lucky pedestrians below, who just so happened to be wandering down Central Avenue that morning.
Look what I found in my pocket! Look! A year's salary right here! What I call them? Fun coupons!
He was so keen for his employees to watch this demonstration in full that he put an armed guard on the door to prevent anyone from leaving. Dude, this got intense suddenly. It sounds like you're losing your mind. Are you really old at this point? This sounds like the sort of crazy thing that an old person would do. The Schoen brothers jockeyed for positions for several years, and tensions between the Imperials and the Renegades grew. I'm glad we've given them names now, Danny, these different factions. It makes it much more entertaining. One Americo executive revealed that the Renegades were becoming increasingly agitated by Sam's blind loyalty to their dad. He said Sam would sit in the group and discuss the things everyone thought should be done, and then he would always side with his father. But I always felt that Sam was the only one of the boys who understood that their father had built the company. Who said this? Oh, and just a random executive. Yeah, okay. So the random executive has exactly the same opinion as me. That the dad is the one who knows what's going on because he built the company. And then he decided on his most promising son to run it. That seems smart. Like, that's not anyone who's not the Renegades would think. By the end of the 1970s, Leonard was chairman and Sam had been appointed CEO of Amoco. Mark and Joe, the leaders of the Renegades, eventually quit their posts in sheer frustration at the direction the company was taking, but they didn't do too badly during those wilderness years. Despite the fact that they were no longer involved with the running of the company, Leonard thoughtfully kept them on the executive's payroll. On top of that, he also bankrolled several new business ventures for the grumpy runaway kids, including a multi-million-dollar grossing printing company whose top customer ended up being none other than U-Haul. It's like, it's just charity, isn't it? It's like, kids, you're not very successful at life because, well, you've been handed everything. What did I expect? And it's like, yeah, Dad, we want to do business, but we're not very good at it. So will you be our only customer? So it's just giving them pocket money and being like, yeah, clean the garage.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
Jesus Christ. Rich people. However, Leonard was always very keen to get the brothers back on board with Amoco and get his vision of a happy family business back on the right tracks. He was to finally get his wish in the mid-1980s when both Joe and Mark agreed to return to the company in executive roles. But it came at a price! I don't know why I'm being so dramatic.
I'll show you crime drama.
Shut your face! Don't make me rub out your face. I can rub it out just like I ripped it off.
Bring it on. I will lend you.
This t-shirt feels a little tight. I feel like I went for small and I should have gone for medium. After taking on their new positions, Joe and Mark led a coup, which resulted in their father being forced into retirement from his own company. By this point, Leonard had generously dished out 94% of the company's shares to his ever-growing army of children, and Joe and Mark temporarily managed to get the majority of the family fighting for the renegade side. That's an error. Look, I would not. If I was this Leonard dude, I don't know why he gave out 94%, but I'd be like, I'm holding on to a majority until I die, and then in my will I'll leave it all to Sam. Because Mark and Joe. And I know they're his kids, but they do seem like dicks. Allegedly. They successfully argued that Leonard had overreached himself to the detriment of the company, and a change in leadership was long overdue. If I was there, I'd be like, I don't give a what you think. One, it's my company. 2, I'm gonna be dead soon. 3, you dicks. Leonard reluctantly agreed to forced retirement with a single condition. Eldest son and loyal Imperial fighter Sam should stay on as CEO. This arrangement wouldn't last very long though. Just 9 months later in 1987, Sam conceded that the hatred and contempt from his brothers was making his job impossible. An Amoco vice president claims on at least one occasion that he had to step in to prevent his other brothers from physically attacking Sam during board meetings. Damn, son. Sam resigned from his post, which gave renegade brother Joe the freedom to take over the company and implement his long-desired back-to-basics strategy. I hope this does. U-Haul is around today, and all I know is for them towing, renting out the trailers like they describe, and maybe storage. But again, this is just from movies, I don't really have any idea. I really hope it fails though. And then Sam has to come back and rescue everything like the hero he probably is. And it has to be said that he made a pretty good job of it. Well, But not everyone was happy. Joe got to work on discontinuing all the silly extra lines that had cropped up in the diversification period, so it was no longer possible to hire punch bowls, awnings, jet skis, VHS tapes, and very probably bouncy castles from the moving equipment and storage company. But this also meant that thousands of jobs were axed, many of which had belonged to old friends of his father. And this infuriated Leonard to the point that he and faithful son Sam decided to try and wrestle back control of the company from the renegade faction. Leonard had long since divorced his second wife and would go on to have 3 more marriages, oh my. One of them would just last 3 months, while another lasted a single day. Dude, come on. Can you imagine getting divorced the day after you get married? So what is going on? This isn't an episode of Friends? Classic Ross move. But although his wives came and went, some of Leonard's children were now drifting back towards his side of the bitter family division. And by the late 1980s, Leonard, Sam, and other fellow Imperials felt as if they had enough votes among the shareholders to seize back control of Americo from the renegade faction. There followed a complicated and long-winded power struggle, during which the reigning CEO, Joe, persuaded the board to issue over 8,000 new shares to key executives, which would tilt the voting power in favor of the renegades. This successfully blocked the takeover bid from the Imperials, but Leonard and Sam argued that the move was illegal and took Americo to court to seek damages. It was a court battle that would rumble on for years, during which time Joe took the decision to terminate his father's lifetime contract of $400,000 a year. Dude, that's such a dick move. He made you. He actually made you. Things reached boiling point during an ill-fated stockholders meeting held at the Sands Regent Hotel in Nevada in 1989, which descended into a massive family brawl. Excellent. Leonard argued that the company had become diluted and devalued under Joe's leadership and that the company had abandoned its core principles. Oh, they mean like, Danny means like a corporate brawl. I thought they were gonna fight. That would have been awesome. The renegades Joe and Mark responded with vicious taunts of profanities aimed at Leonard, Sam, and fellow Imperial brother Mike. According to witnesses, the productive meetings came to an abrupt halt when renegades Joe and Mark suddenly decided to stand up and give the Imperial Mike a proper pummeling, which had to be broken up by the hotel security guards. Also, they did beat the shit out of someone. Joe and Mark, you dickheads. I'm really on the Imperial side here. Fuck the renegades, right?
Hashtag renegades for life.
Why do you always have to disagree with me? Afterwards, poor Mike was filmed holding an ice pack to his battered face and would go on to file misdemeanor battery charges against the brothers, but these were quietly dropped. The meeting was wisely adjourned to another date. Unbelievably, things are about to take an even darker turn. You know a family fight's serious when you report it to the police. It's like, yeah, my brother beat me up. I want charges pressed. No fucking hell, this got serious. Unbelievably, things are about to take an even darker turn. On April 6, 1990, loyal eldest son Sam was attending a business trip in Phoenix, leaving his wife Eva Berg Schoen back at home in Telluride, Colorado with their young children. Sam and Eva had enjoyed a long and happy marriage, and it's probably no surprise that Eva was Leonard's favorite daughter-in-law. The following morning, the young children found their mother dead at the top, oh my god, really? At the top of the staircase, after apparently having shot in the back with a .25 caliber pistol in the middle of the night. She was 44. Dude, this is so sad. Why are they killing everyone's wives? Murder looked like a professional job. Jesus Christ. If this is Sam, Joe and Mark, allegedly. Those cocks. The intruder had managed allegedly, I'm just guessing. The intruder had managed to slip past guard dogs and sleeping children, used a pistol equipped with a silencer. You know it's serious when there's a silencer on there. Silencers in movies are for James Bond and assassins. And then he escaped back into the night unseen. And yet the police were baffled as to who would want to kill Eva Berg Schoen. Originally from Norway, Eva was a shy and gentle woman who devoted her life to her children and her dogs. But devastated husband Sam Schoen had his own theories. After immediately returning home from his business trip, he and his children went into hiding, and he offered a $250,000 reward for information leading to the conviction of his wife's murderer. Both Sam and his father Leonard believed that the renegade leaders Joe and Mark were involved in the killing. Oh my god, this is so intense. When I thought, like, someone recommended telling the U-Haul story, and I was like, Sam, the U-Haul story, some down. And I really had no idea that it was this. Sam speculated that he was the intended target as his brothers wanted him out of the family picture for good. But the bungled operation had instead led to the murder of his wife. And he went public with the allegations. He said, "At a minimum, I'm certain that my wife's death was a direct result of the environment created by the seizure of control of U-Haul by my brother Joe." In retaliation, Renegade Mark filed defamation suits against Leonard and Sam. Yeah, which is why I'm just saying this allegedly happened. And it's all what Sam said. I'm not saying it myself. Mark and Joe even launched their own private investigation into the murder, as they felt as if the police investigation wasn't moving quickly enough and was focusing too much attention on U-Haul. The defamation suits were dismissed as Mark was a limited public figure and murder is considered a public concern. I have no idea what that means. The murder case was eventually solved in 1994 following a feature on the long-running Unsolved Mysteries TV show. Ooh, closure! The real killer was a paroled serial rapist called Frank Marquis, who had confessed the crime to his own brother-in-law.
Well, I guess we've found our man.
He was given a plea deal to serve 24 years in prison for reckless manslaughter and second-degree burglary in return for providing evidence that he was acting alone and had not been hired to kill either. 24 years is the deal. Damn, dude. I mean, you deserve it. You killed a woman and a mother. Yeah, 24 years. I'm pretty okay with that. The sheriff on the case declared that there was no doubt in his mind that Frank Marquis was acting alone. But despite this, and the conviction of Frank Marquis, Sam would always remain convinced that his brothers were involved. But to wrap up the business side of this bitter story, in 1994, a jury sided with Leonard and Sam Schoen and agreed that Joel's sale of those 8,000 shares had been improper. The jury initially stipulated that Joe and 5 other Americo directors should pay Leonard and Sam $1.47 billion in compensation. Holy shit. And that Joe should pay an additional $70 million in punitive damages. Joe's initial response to this was, "We're a tad surprised at the verdict." Are you though, Joe? Are you though, or are you just building a case ready for your appeal? A few months later, an Arizona state court found the figures to be a bit excessive and slashed the compensation figure to $461 million, with Joe now only copping $7 million in punitive damages. It was still enough to force Americo into filing for bankruptcy court protection and selling off millions of dollars worth of assets, although the company would go on to survive this difficult financial patch. This is a crazy business story. But it was certainly the end of the road for Leonard and Sam's involvement with U-Haul and Amoco. In return for compensation, they agreed to give up all the shares in the company that Leonard had founded with his wife 50 years earlier and hand over complete control to the Renegade faction. I can't believe the Renegades won. So far, maybe it'll change. That's disappointing. Perhaps end of the road is an unfortunate choice of phrase. Just a few years later, in 1999, Leonard suffered fatal injuries after he drove his car into that telegraph pole near his home in Las Vegas. His death was ruled a suicide by the coroner's court. Dude, is that really how you want to go? Committing suicide in a car crash? That just sounds like not a guaranteed way.
Sorry, I'm making a go of it in a new city.
Americo would continue to court controversy over the next few years, including a scandal in which they seemed to copy Enron's unique flavor of mark-to-market accounting. Oh no. Which, as we discussed in the Enron video, is a way of making your books look good when they're not good. Or to me, it looked like that. Maybe someone in the comments was like, mark-to-market is actually a legitimate accounting method. I'm like, dude, it seems like a scam, bro. In 2002, the company was ordered to revise its financial results for the previous 7 years using an accounting model that made more sense, but unfortunately didn't look quite so good on paper, resulting in a dramatic drop in the share price of the company. However, Americo would later file a $2.7 billion lawsuit against the accounting firm that had advised them to use the mark-to-market accounting model in the first place. An undisclosed but reportedly substantial settlement was later reached. After over 35 years since he first ousted his own father from the company, Joe Schoen remains CEO of Americo today, and the business is going well, generating just under $1 billion in annual sales. I'm slightly disappointed that it's going well because I didn't want the Renegades to win. I feel like ETA bested me. You chose the winning team, ETA. However, from his 11 siblings, he's now only on speaking terms with 2 of them. I wonder how I feel about that on his deathbed. He probably won't care. And some might feel that there's something not quite right about the business ending up in the hands of the brothers, who were effectively handed everything on a plate by their father, only to go out of their way to oust him and cut off his financial rewards from the very company that he had gifted them. Others might argue that the business may not be around today if Leonard and Sam had been allowed to pursue their bizarre diversification strategy. Leonard himself put the family's problems down to bad genes, spoiled brat syndrome, the corrupting influence of power and greed, and his own stupidity in dishing out shares to siblings who hated each other in the first place. Wow, I mean, good for you owning it, Sam. And it's probably true to say that it'd have been much better off selling in the 1970s for the first half-decent offer that came his way, retiring to a little cottage in Costa Rica, and leaving the kids to find their own path in life. It is one of those things, right? Like, the ironies of it all. It's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, you know, I persuade myself. It's like, yeah, I work really hard. I want to, like, provide for my kids. Where it turns out providing for your kids might be a bit of an error. I just hope my kids aren't dickheads. But at least everyone involved seems to have ended up with a massive wad of cash from the small business that Leonard founded back in 1945, so it's not all bad news. You just can't help feeling sorry for Leonard Schoen. He may have founded a massive American business success story which is still going strong today, but he destroyed his family along the way. Sadly, Leonard's own conclusive feelings on the U-Haul saga is that I created a monster. This has been Business Plays. There were very few in today's episode because it turned out to be terribly sad and about a family that destroyed itself with money and business. Welcome to Business Blaze. Thank you for watching. I've been your host, the boy with the blaze, aka Simon. This has been Charles/Wilson/ETA. Thank you, Danny, for the writing. Thank you, Sam, for the memes, and thank you, Peter, for watching. Peter, freaking the out right now.
What the hell is even that?